Pod, everyone. I'm Chelsea Poe, and I'm here with one of like my most talented friends, Sinn Sage. You like changed so much in the lesbian porn game, and I can't believe that you're like a collaborator with us at Trouble Films now, and like we get to just like you text me occasionally, and it just still goes through my mind like, what the fuck? Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, hello. It's a pleasure to be here.
I feel like we haven't talked in a minute, probably not since literally AVN before the pandemic is the last time we like
Yeah,
sat down
AVN
for more than
20.
15 minutes.
Yeah, it would have been AVN 2020, I think. Or were you there? You were
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
I was sitting next to you. Yeah,
That's
I
right. That's
think
right. No, sorry. I was just getting it
yeah.
confused with previous year and the stuff that we had done together and da 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 da.
It all
Yeah,
kind of
memories
blends
are.
together. But
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
you've done so much. Like the way I viewed you when I came into this industry, like you were in Belladonna's Strap Dykes, and like I feel like you just changed the way lesbian porn was perceived, because I feel like so much before it was still so much like these stereotypes about, oh, the girls in lesbian porn don't actually fuck each other, they're not actually gay, they like have fake fingernails. And then you were like the first femme to like wear a strap on and just like fuck the shit out of girls really hard. So I just want to like hear how you like got into the industry and like where you're from, because are you from SoCal originally?
Yes, yeah. Well, I mean, I was born in Northern California in the Redwoods,
Okay.
but I was only there till I was like five and a half,
Mm-hmm.
and then my family moved to Southern California. So I'm from like a very, very small, isolated desert town, in Southern California that is like an hour and a half ish away from LA. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like LA adjacent, but it's crazy how depending on where you are, an hour and a half away from LA looks like the middle of fucking nowhere.
Yeah, truly. You can be in the middle of desert and just like not anyone around.
Yep. And that was the little town that I grew up in. So let's see. So that's where I'm from. Definitely, my dad would take me into LA sometimes when I was young, and it was such uh, like I wanted that, coming from this really
Yeah.
small town. I was like, look at this big city, and it seemed so like sexy and romantic. Yeah, and so here we are, decades later, and I fucking hate that city.
Yeah, I hate LA so much. I'm going
I
there
hate
literally
it.
this afternoon, and I'm like, okay, so the awards are Thursday. I can leave Friday then.
Yeah. Yeah, but some people love that city, and that's cool. I don't want to, they're not wrong for loving it. It's just not my cup of tea, and the traffic and the heat and
Yeah, it's just like an hour in a car no matter where you go.
no
I'm just like
matter
not that
where.
kind of person.
No.
So, were you living in your small town when you like first got into porn, or did you move to?
Yeah, no, I was. Well, okay, so basically, like I knew I wanted to do to work in entertainment and be an entertainer.
Mhm.
Probably from the time I was, like 5 years old, or the time I like first comprehended of what that meant.
For sure.
I was always in theater productions, I was in community theater, any opportunities at the school. And then when I was in high school, I was in like show choir, so singing and dancing, and took dancing classes, and I just loved that stuff. I love being on stage. Um, and around puberty time, I was also had like raging hormones, and I was feeling very sexual. I didn't have very much sexual experience by the time I got into porn.
Mhm.
But I just knew that form of like sexual entertainment was something that just kind of like locked in and fell into place for me in a way that made a lot of sense. So, when I was 18, I was looking in the backs of like LA Weekly magazine. They're like city magazines. And, this was 2002, I think. And I, it was a very long time ago. And the internet looked like a totally different place. And
For
so
sure.
I was like, basically, yeah, I was just calling these phone numbers in the backs of these magazines looking for nude models, And I was like, I'd like to do this. And then, they'd tell me the address somewhere in LA, and I would write down directions by hand. Like I would be like, how do I get there? And they'd be like, well, you're going to get on this freeway and then you're going to go west on this freeway. You know what I mean? And I had to like write it down step by step. Yes.
Wow.
This was the olden days. No
It's
freaking,
so
I didn't have a cell phone.
I guess it makes sense that that's where you entered the industry. Like that feels so 90s still to me, but like if you came up in your porn career during the mid 2000s, it makes sense. But I just always assume like, oh yeah, it's all digital already. There was
Oh
like all this
no.
stuff that existed.
Oh my gosh, no way.
So what sort of
Yeah.
stuff made you want to do that in the first place? Were you just like very aware that it was like the medium that just connected for you, or did you see porn that you were like, okay, this is my shit, I want to do this?
That's, it's so fucking long ago now. It's really hard to say. But I will say that again, the access that people have now that you had when you were, getting interested in wanting to do it did not exist. So like the porn that I would have even seen is like, man, okay, so I think when I was in middle school, some friends, I had two guy friends, they were like family friends and we were the same age, and they found a box of porn in the desert somewhere. And it had some VHS tapes in it. And it was the sneaky thing. And they're like, come in the room tonight and we'll watch this porn, And I was like, fuck yeah, I want
Yeah.
to see this porn, And like, that's how I saw porn.
What was your reaction to it when you first saw it?
It was, man, like if it was my adult brain seeing these children watching this porn, it was just like the hormones that were like raging through that room of 13-year-old boys and girls, like
Yeah.
but at the time I was just kind of like, it wasn't appealing to me. It didn't look sexy.
For real,
It was
yeah.
old, it was like early 90s or maybe 80s. So big curly hair. And I remember the man like left his floppy weird socks on for the whole thing. And it was just like awkward for me watching that. So it was certainly, I wasn't like inspired in that moment by
Mhm.
any means. It was just something I saw. And then like talking about internet porn, it was more like, I had a 14K modem. So I would look up, I'd type in maybe like lesbian bondage or something. And then you see these tiny little like super pixelated like photo like thumbnails, and you click on it, and I'd sit there and wait 5 to 10 minutes as it like slowly came into view, And so it'd be like the one picture, like I can still remember that one picture in my head with like, very pretty looking girls, and one of them had like her arms were up in a spreader bar, and it was like a lavender colored cuffs, and the girl in the bottom was squatting down with her tongue like out on her clit, and I was just like, oh yeah, I can masturbate to this. But yeah, so there were no videos. I didn't have any access to videos whatsoever because my computer wasn't that great and the internet was terrible. And it wasn't really like consolidated like it is now. There wasn't really like a Google or anything.
Yeah.
So it was just weird. So like I don't know how I knew that's what I wanted. Oh, maybe like some magazines, I think my girlfriend when I was younger had like her dad had a subscription to Easy Rider. So I saw some of that.
What's
And
Easy Rider?
Easy Rider is like it's a 90s, 80s, 90s porno mag that was biker bitches and like Harley Davidsons and like naked ladies licking each other's pussies on hairy pussies, I
In
might add.
leather and stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and leather and
Oh
like
yeah.
on a motorcycle,
I
So
can see
stuff
that
like
how that would be an influence on you. I can see the crossover. Like I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That like you're like all this 90s porn. I can't relate to this. I don't have weird curly hair like that. I don't have
Right.
these gigantic fake boobs. Like
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, I can totally see that now where you're like, oh, it's like motorcycle babes licking each other's pussies.
Well, I don't know. I think there was definitely an inkling there of being like, I want to be the one getting these pictures taken of me.
Hmm.
You know, like I didn't look at the magazines with this horniness of like, whatever, like I want to fuck these women or
Yeah.
anything like that. It was more like, I want to be that, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I felt that too when I first started looking at porn. Like the first time I
Yeah.
saw it, um, so I dated like the same girl from 7th grade till 11th grade. I was like one of those people. And her family was
Wow.
like super forward with sex and stuff and
Oh,
like
cool.
super accepting about like trans and gay stuff. So it was really great. But like, so she
Yes.
showed me porn for the first time, I think when I was 14. And I was
Uh-huh.
just so intimidated because I'm like, there's penises all over the screen. This is just too much. I can't do this. And then like when I was like younger, maybe like 11 or something, one of my friend's older brothers had all this porn. It was all women with penises. And I was like, I just don't understand. But he's like, yeah, they're so fucking hot. And it wasn't even like misgendering. It was like the most
Yeah,
empowering thing from like some horny 14-year-old boy. It's just like,
that is.
huh, huh.
That's awesome
So,
though. I kind of love that.
right? Where I'm like, oh, but yeah, I can totally see that because I didn't get interested in porn until kind of your generation of performers because it was actually like accessible where it's like, okay,
Yeah.
I don't have all these like surgeries and like this looks like a girl who I'd like literally meet at a show or something instead of it being like this huge kind of like I feel like 90s porn stars were so like out of reach, it feels like Jenna,
Yeah.
like I met Jenna Jameson and she's like when you walk up to her you're like, oh my god, it's like walking up to like Britney Spears or someone like that famous, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, that I think was just the shift of the internet and how the job of being a porn star has shifted in the past um I'd say really 15 years probably. Um because yeah, it used to be this unattainable thing. It used to be, you know, the amount of porn stars was a pool of like 200 people.
Mm-hmm.
Um and yeah, you had to have this very specific look. You had to fit this specific mold. Um,
You had to be in LA.
you had to be in LA for sure. And, you know, and then you'd get an agent and he'd tell you what to do and how to look and yada, yada, yada. I mean, I could say, even in my beginning stages when I did kind of try to shop around like an agent or two or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, you know, they'd be like, at the time, you know, I was really light skinned. They'd be like, you're too pale, you need a tan, your tits are too small, you're you know, just like stupid things, you know,
Yeah.
because I didn't fit that mold or whatever. And you know, I'm glad that it's not like that anymore. But at the same time, the way that it's changed is definitely that access. That's what we were kind of talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Is like back in the day, you know, how do you send a message to Jenna Jameson or, you know, who else was out there? Like Kobe Ty, Stephanie Swift.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't. You see them when you pay your money to go to a convention and stand in line and get to meet them. And that's how
Mm-hmm.
you communicate with them. And now, like, you know, I'm sure we've all had it, but we get these relentless email stalkers and you know, the toll that that takes psychologically on your mental health is massive. Like I can't really understate it. And
Mm-hmm.
um I'm sorry, I can't overstate it. And so it's like, but I any other job or any other thing, you know, maybe you would say, well, change your email address or whatever. Well, I can't fucking do that because that's my business. That's how
Yeah.
I make a living, like by people being able to reach me now. And it didn't used to be like that. And so, you know, on the one hand, like there's so many positive things about it that because now I'm in control of my business, like I'm not just sitting by the phone waiting for someone to book me, please, so I can make a little bit of money. You
Yeah.
know, now I like own my products and I have so much more independence and control over my life because of that. And that is great. But at the same time, there's that double-edged sword aspect where it's like, I can be reached 24/7 by any random person on the planet, and people are sick. They have mental illness and sickness, and sucks. That part of it sucks. So, just like everything in life, the duality.
For sure. I feel like performers are just the amount of online harassment you can get, just the amount of all that stuff. It was so just disregarded even 10 years ago of like, well, that girl left porn because she's crazy. It's never really was thought of as a mental health thing. And I think that's starting to change a little bit more. And I think that's just kind of a larger conversation that's starting to change. I mean, even things like
Yes.
Pineapple, being at AVN now, and different things and different campsites doing like health and wellness week and trying to
Yes.
get these resources to people, I think is just such a difference. And I think that's like really a good switch for this industry, because truly, even when I started, people would burn out in the first year and a half and you would just never see them again.
Yeah,
There's
for
so many
sure.
girls who I wish that I got their real contact info, because I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, you were so cool. We hung out like 3 or 4 times and then they're just gone because they're got burned out by the industry. And I can understand
Yeah,
that completely, but it
for
almost just
sure.
feels like people just disappear into thin air.
Yeah, and they're just gone. You're like, oh, I wonder whatever happened to so and so.
Yeah, it's so true.
Left. But I think
So
it's just like a bigger picture, globally even. I don't know, I feel like everyone's becoming like a little more woke to these issues
mhm,
of mental health and how dangerous all that stuff is, and that it needs to be paid attention to. And the other thing that's really cool is that, now we really do hold the power, more than ever in this industry, more
truly.
than ever. That's so huge. So it's like, this old stereotype, this cliche kind of picture people have in their heads of like what a porn director looks like, some like misogynistic, gross, hairy dude with like chains around his neck smoking a
Mhm.
cigar or something, like telling us how to fuck for a scene. It's just like, that's so old and outdated and does not exist anymore. Like, it's now women, and it's now, young people
Yeah.
who is just making their own shit, and we're the bosses now. And it's that part of empowerment is really cool, because we don't have to put up with bullshit like that anymore. If some nasty director is like trying to get us to do something we don't want to do, we can just be like, fuck you, I'm out. Like, I don't need this one job paycheck anymore. I
Truly.
can go home and make more money on my fucking computer, so suck my ass.
I think that's really changed the whole like role of directors too. And I feel like the directors you are seeing doing so well are either former performers or very performer centric directors. Like Ricky Greenwood, I
Absolutely.
think is a very good example, who's really focusing on what they can do with like filmmaking and the story around the performers, as opposed to the other way around, where a lot of
Yes.
directors I feel like we're just kind of filling in the slots before, where they're like, okay, we need someone for this role. Let's just get some
Yep.
girl who will do it and who can do this,
Totally.
and this.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's not right for them.
No, it's just like it burns performers out, it burns
Yeah.
directors out.
Yeah.
It just, yeah, I feel like that there's now this giant shift, I think
Yes.
is the best thing for the industry. And I think the pandemic has kind of sped it up,
Fuck yeah.
because these studios have way less power than they do
Hell
5 years
yeah,
ago,
dude.
or even before the pandemic. I always
Yeah.
like to talk about AVN, because when I first went to AVN, everyone's on the floor trying to hustle to get jobs.
Yeah.
And now everyone's at their hotel, not on the floor, shooting content and making a whole fucking movie during AVN
Yep.
week. And everyone's
Yep.
doing that. And then
Yes.
that stuff is getting nominated the next year. And it's
Right.
just like this whole cycle that like these conventions are now more about making content
Yep.
and making porn than
Yes.
the whole like networking thing as much.
Yeah, no, the networking is like, what you're networking with is other performers to make
Mhm.
stuff, not fucking casting directors, or directors, and being like, please hire me in your movie. It's like, no, I'm making the movie now. Who's want to make it with me? And that's fucking awesome.
I
And
think
just
there's
connecting with the fans, and like getting your info out to them with cards or flyers or whatever,
Mhm.
taking pictures with them, like when they meet you in real life and you're friendly and you hug and all, and you take pictures with them and stuff, like that's gonna create some loyalty to you. And so now they're gonna be like, oh, I met her once, she's so cool. And then maybe that spreads around and gets you more people to your website, to your OnlyFans, to look at your products, you know, and like, yeah, it's, man, being the owner of the means of production is the way to go.
You've really been on both sides of it, and that's why I think it's so interesting, because when I first met you, you were still very much in like the whole studio model where you were like, okay, I have all these clips. When you came to Trouble Films, you're like, how can I make these into movies? Then I feel like you've literally had a basically like second career since coming to Trouble Films, and you've been releasing like amazing movies every 2-3 months for the last like, how long has it been? How long have you been working with Trouble Films? At least like 3-4 years now, right?
I don't even think it's been that long. I think it's only been maybe like 2019.
I mean, that feels like a decade. Like,
I know,
I'm just
right?
like, yeah, every time
Yeah.
I do this social media for Trouble Films, I'm like, every time I log on, I feel like I'm like, oh, there's a new Sin lesbian movie. It's always like, fuck yes. But yeah, do you want to talk about like kind of the differences? Like, because you started in the whole studio model and you were like very part of the
Oh
way
yeah.
I think of it, you were definitely part of that whole like alt wave porn wave with people like, maybe you were a little bit later, but I think you were still part of it, like with Stoya, Joanna Angel, um, Sasha Grey, like Caden
Oh
Cross.
yeah.
Like you guys definitely changed what the face of porn was.
I was definitely there with those people for sure. I think Joanna was doing her thing like a little bit before I started
Mhm.
really getting into the business. Can we pause for 1 second? I have to
Of
go pee.
course. Okay, we are back. So yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, what was the question specifically though?
Oh, I was like, I'm kind of just wondering, like, what was your experience when did you like know
Yeah.
when you were in the middle of like that kind of whole scene of alt porn happening? That was a bigger thing. Because I'm assuming you probably started
Oh
to
my
see
gosh.
more people that look like you and have like similar aesthetics and similar like vibes, as opposed to kind of what porn was.
Yeah, I mean, well, you have to think that during that time period, you know, I had a lot fewer tattoos, and I think my looks, it felt anyways that my look was very much more like the girl next door,
Mhm.
who then would get a girl in bed and just like fuck her socks off.
I love that for you. That's so great.
um so yeah, I definitely didn't feel like a part of that club, but also too because there was so much with, when you get into, well, things are so different now, but yeah, when I got into porn and I was like, so I was in a relationship with a man at the time,
Mhm.
and we were together for 9 years, and it was a long relationship. And so for me, it wasn't even really a question of, am I going to do boy girl or am I going to do girl girl? For me, it was like, I'm going to do porn and I don't fuck other guys besides my boyfriend. So I'm doing girls. Like it
Mhm.
wasn't even something I sat around and pondered about. It was just like what I was going to do. And I realized my sexual identity when I was, like puberty, and it was like, okay, yes, girls are hot and I like them. um so that to me was all natural. And um fuck, I just totally had a brain fart. I did drink
Oh,
last night, just letting you
you're all
know.
good. You're all good.
But yeah, so yeah, so for me it felt very much like I was stuck in this girl thing, and I was getting a lot of fan reactions and a lot of bookings for girl scenes,
Mhm.
and this is without an agent. So I was just kind of like meeting the right people and then working for them. And so that was really nice, and I felt like I was making a big contribution to something different. But then in the mainstream adult media, just not seeing or feeling any reflection of that. Like when it came to awards and stuff like that, it's like they gave the awards to the girls, the performers who were doing all the scenes, including the
Yeah.
boy girl scenes.
Hmm.
And I even had like an agent tell me that one time that I was talking to, not my agent, but I was talking to
Hmm.
him, and he's just like, well, yeah, you can come in and just do girl girl if you want, but you're not going to get very much work, because if I'm going to hire, if I have a girl girl scene, I'm going to hire the girl that does all these boy girl scenes for me and then just throw her a girl girl scene. And I was like, well, that's not fair at all. And that sounds really stupid. But that's like how the way that they were thinking at that time. And so I just never felt like from the industry any sort of recognition whatsoever. It was really just from individual emails I'd get from women, usually, or couples sometimes, but is even to this day, it's more rare that a man emails me and is like, wow, you've changed my life or whatever. But I get emails like that from women constantly. um
Hmm.
so that to me, I mean, honestly, that's like the most rewarding thing, and it makes me feel like I'm fulfilling my purpose in life, to inspire people to like live their truth and um just live for themselves and be passionate about what they love and want. But you know when you work in an industry for so long, and it's most of your life, it becomes most of a big part of your identity. It's like, to get that sort of recognition from your peers, from the industry in which you work, like, it was something that I definitely wanted, but had just felt like that's not for me. Like, I'll never get that.
So how many AVN awards did you get before you finally broke through and won? Because I want to talk about
Oh,
that.
do you mean like nominations before I
Yeah,
finally?
like how many years did you go
Yeah,
in a row? Was it like a thing that was building over like 5, 6 years, or was
yeah.
it?
I would say, yeah. I would say probably I started getting a little more recognition when, well, at least in the form of nominations, when I started working for Belladonna, because she was already so established as such a big name, and
Yeah, she was as big as you could honestly get in the 2000s. I mean,
yeah,
I
I think
don't
so too.
know if she wasn't making that stuff. I don't know if I would have been as drawn to porn as I was, just because like her
Yeah,
porn, like as I brought up with Strap Dykes with you before, like that stuff
yeah,
was just so intense. And I feel like most lesbian porn I was seeing was super vanilla. And it's just
yeah,
like fingering in a bedroom
yeah,
scene, but like
yeah,
it was like you and Bobby Starr just like straight up destroying girls with a strap on. It was just like,
yeah.
damn, this is the kind of sex I have. This is the stuff I want to see in porn.
Yeah.
So you were like 5 years in. I'm sure you're probably pretty frustrated with the industry at that point, to at least some level, where you're like,
Yeah, I mean,
okay,
just in that regard, I was just like, oh well, whatever. Like, I'm not even going to go to these things, or I'm not really going to pay attention to nominations. I'm just going to be like, well, that's cool that they thought that scene was worth nominating. But I was like, and then like, I think the first AVN actual awards show that I went to and sat down and watched the awards
mhm.
show, like, what won the best girl scene was Jessie Jane with Belladonna in that Pirates parody movie.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, that's like $1 million porno, right?
Right. And that, and then I kind of like, they play little bits and clips from the
Hmm.
scene, and like, see, Belladonna, I knew her. Like, she was just like a sexual dynamo. Like, she exuded it. Like, she was curious about it constantly. Um, every new sort of thing she learned about an individual, it was like her eyes went wide with wonder, and it was,
Wow.
she just like she was magical with it. And so I know she was like really into it and stuff. But the little clip bit that I saw just seemed like so over the top, and I could just picture how that scene went down, and the directors are like, okay, now you guys get in the scissor position and like really go for it, and then they're probably like, okay, cut. All right, what are we going to have you guys do next? Well, we need to see some penetration. So make sure you're putting your fingers in her like this way. I mean, just,
Yeah.
I could see that happening. And that's all cool and stuff, but it's like the type of scenes that I was doing it's not that shit. And they're not for like $1 million movies. But it was definitely with just a passion and authenticity. that made it just fun and feel good and real for me in the scene. And so I guess probably I would just like be going for what's gonna feel real and fun and good for me.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as it's doing that for me, then I know that whoever's going to be watching it is going to get that from it too. So that was kind of like what I was going to do with my performances, regardless of whether that was going to win me an award or not, you know? So I had kind of just given up on all that. And even when I got that even when I got that nomination for Best Girl Scene, that was my first time being nominated for just a girl scene. And it was very exciting. And I remember when I finished making that scene, I said, you know, if I've ever done a scene that was gonna win an award, like that was the scene. Like I said that to Danny, like as we finished the sex. So then I got nominated and I was like, and there's this little like flicker of hope in my heart, like, what, maybe I could. And then the rational part of my brain was like, no girl, no.
Yeah, there's 15 other scenes nominated, there's porn from all around the world with bigger budgets, like I can see.
Not for you, Sinn, not for you. So even like when it happened,
was that the Hard Rock or was that another hotel?
It was at the Hard Rock. It was 2013.
2013.
Yeah. And yeah, I think they had moved to the Hard Rock. 2012 was the first year. And yeah, so I was not in the room.
What? You weren't in the room?
No, I had been you know, obviously I've been drinking as one does there, and
definitely anxiety drinking, a very real thing there.
Yes, like, okay, I need to be okay with just talking to all these people. And so I had left I had like a little covered jacket thing, and it was my mom's, and I had left it at like a bar top somewhere, and I was like, oh shit, I better go get this. And so I was like, this doesn't matter, I'm not gonna win. I left the room, I went to go find my jacket. I was walking back to the room, to the amphitheater place, and my phone went off. At the time I was getting Twitter notifications still. And I looked down at my phone and it said from Pornstar Tweet, it was like, oh, Sinn Sage Danny Daniels won Best Girl Scene. And I was like, what? And then I run into the room and Danny's on stage and she was like, where is she? Where's Sinn? You know? And man, if you would have been there, it was hilarious. I started running down the side of the aisle with my hands waving in the air, and I was like, I'm here. Oh my God, hilarious. I'm such a goofball and nerd. So yeah, so I ran down there, and I feel like someone was sitting in the front row that I knew, and I just like handed her my purse, and I was like, here, can you watch this? You know, and I ran up on stage, and Danny grabs me and kisses me, and yeah, it was really like, it sounds really fucking stupid to say this now, but yeah, it was like a little dream of mine, and it was coming true in that moment.
I think people need to take AVN as a more serious thing in a way, like the world does, because like I was watching the Olympics and I was just like, I wonder how many Olympics there have been. And I'm like, there's been like 30. There's been 37 AVN awards.
Wow.
Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's been a line of sex workers since the mid 80s all the way until now that you can draw a complete line from basically every single major porn scene and film and performer for over like 30, nearly 40 years.
Yeah.
I think that you did that is like a huge accomplishment, and like it should be treated 100% that way. So what did you do to celebrate that? So you got your like purse back, I'm assuming. I'm assuming you knew the person.
I did. It all that worked out. Yeah, it just being able to stand up on the stage, and honestly, like, people were cheering really hard, and it's all it's not fans, you know, or whatever. It's all of us. It's all my colleagues, and yeah, and I like to think that, you know, all the women that I had worked with and done scenes with were like happy for me in that moment, you know. it felt great. So so yeah, celebrate, I think we just went to the Circle Bar, and I was just smiling so hard, I'm sure, and just having drinks, and people were friendly, and it was a really good night. It was really cool. And it felt good to, yeah, like finally get that recognition. And I will say, like, I feel like the very next year, 2014, that was the first year that they've always had, performer of the year category, but that's of course going to go to those girls that do everything. And so 2014 was the first year that they had an all girl performer of the year category. And that I feel like has shown like a big shift, to get to having that recognition be a little more, that there's more of it now, for the people who get in the industry and do amazing things, but do it in this one area, and I feel like it's amazing, like what you've done, Chelsea, for
Thank you.
trans performers in this industry. Like, you've really led the charge to get rid of outdated and transphobic titles and wording, and to bring that into categories at AVA and other award shows too, that like in the same kind of way, like here are other performers that do amazing things and we don't have a space for them to get recognition.
Yeah.
And it's like now those spaces are being made, and it just makes my heart so happy.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool thing about AVN, because if you look through the history of it, it constantly evolves and changes and gets bigger and adds awards and stuff. And I think that's the really cool thing about it. I
More
think
and
the
more
biggest thing,
inclusivity.
yeah, that you can get nominated as a trans person for non-trans awards now. I think that's just like the coolest thing. Like, if you would have told me when I first moved out to SF, when I was working campsites for kink.com and stuff, that you can get nominated for BDSM stuff, I'm like, no idea that was possible.
Right.
So now it's like, oh, okay,
now,
cool. It's
like
kind of
not even
weird now
close.
getting tomorrow night I'm nominated for award in LA, and it's for a trans award, and it's the first trans award I've been nominated for in like 5 years. So now it's a little bit strange to be like, oh, okay, I'm back in this category, it's fine. But yeah, so you've obviously seen so much change in porn. Like, do you like it more now that you have basically total control over what happens with your films and stuff, or did you kind of like it more where you could just focus on being solely a performer?
That is that's such a great question. And there's, just a couple ways of looking at it. Overall, now I have a life where I am able to put away, like, it's like I have a future, I feel like, you know what I mean? It's the way that the industry is now, the way I'm running my business now is sustainable, even as I age and, as things go forward, like now I have something I own. But it is fucking so much more work.
For real.
So yeah, like the days when I was able to pay my bills and just go to set and do the job and go home, and that was it. Like, that was fucking sweet. That was nice. And and to this day, sometimes I still like getting hired from studios, because it still kind of is that. It's like I go there, they do my makeup, they tell me what to say, they tell me where to go, and then I just do my sex thing and I'm like, see you guys later, and it's great. But then I go home and I have to fucking sit down on the computer for hours and hours and hours on end and answer emails and do posts and schedule shoots, and oh my gosh, I mean the list goes on, obviously, but so it's a lot harder now, and it's a lot more work, and life is a lot more complicated. It was a lot more simple 10-15 years ago, but I feel like it's just so fucking worth it. I mean, you asked me, do I like it better now? Of course, hell yes. I've got the control. I don't have to rely on others for my income, really. Like, I could move to, I hope to someday. I can move back in my van, and travel around the country. Like, and still maintain my income, and I can live wherever I want, and I don't have to be bound to Las Vegas or Los Angeles. And just do what I want with my life, really have the control over my own life. So it's a net benefit. It's much better overall.
Yeah, I think that's really one of the beautiful things about Trouble Films, and like what we've kind of done to curate these different artists, that like we can shoot porn anywhere, basically send a finished movie to Courtney and they'll be like, okay, yeah, I can have it up in the next day or so, and then there's a
Yeah.
movie live. And then
Yep.
like before, it just felt like there was so many steps of like, okay, you show up for this shoot, you do it, you might hear about it in like 4 or 5 months, it might be
Oh yeah.
released, yeah, like at
You'll see
best.
it on
But
Twitter, like, oh, this movie's coming out, and you're like, sweet.
also, I
Cool.
feel like with all the studios, there's so much like creative control the studios want to have over you. And with Trouble
Yeah.
Films, it's like Courtney has you here because we want the most Sinn Sage stuff. Or with my stuff, they know what they're getting, you know? Like,
Yeah.
I feel
No,
like
I love
that's,
that. It's so funny too, because as I was like opening up all my clip stores and stuff like that, and I just was thinking, this is how it all got started with Trouble Films. I was just kind of
Mhm.
like, I want to talk to Courtney, because I think AVN was coming up, and we were like, yeah, we're gonna do this and this and this, and like we're gonna meet up. And I was like, can we do dinner maybe? And I just want to pick your brain about how you started your own studio. And I'm like, I want to do that too. And what does it take for me to do that? And Courtney was like, well, why don't you just all you need to do is just distribute your films through someone, and that could be me. So there you go. You have your own studio. I was like, oh, that's all it takes.
Yeah, that's like the stuff
um,
about Trouble Films I love, because it's just like so DIY. It's like, oh yeah, we can do this.
yes,
That's no problem. And it's
yes.
just
And
like,
it,
oh yeah, you make porn on your own, of course.
yeah, you do it yourself anyway. So just, yeah, then take the scenes you've made, compile a few of the ones you really like that maybe have sort of a running theme of some kind, and then now you have a movie and put it out. And then Courtney does all the you know, they do like all the marketing, and they kind of like make everything look neat and pretty, and
Yep.
box covers and stuff like that. And I'm just, all I have to do is give them the art that I've made, the work that I've made, and they tie it up with a fancy little bow and make it awesome. So it's great. I'm so happy about it. And two, just talking about like queer porn, you know, I know how I kind of got my start a lot too, is a lot of sweetheart video stuff. And I think that, well, I believe that that is not girl for the male gaze. Like, to me, the stuff we were doing there is not for that, but it is like very pretty and very cis, and very like
Yeah.
vanilla. And but I didn't feel like a bisexual girl, you know. That never felt right to me. And when I thought about queer porn and the concept of all that, I was like, that's the club I want to be in. You know, like, how do I get in that club? How do I get people to see me as that? And so that was kind of how like I first approached Courtney the first time I ever met them, like, which was a long time ago. And I was like, I just really I want to prove myself that I am that I'm part of this crew, this, you know, this group. And so being able to not only, you know, be in that crew, but to be now making movies and films that represent it, truly super fulfilling for me and really rewarding. And like, I kind of feel that I've achieved a lot of what I set out to do with that.
Yeah, I feel like when you were first working with Courtney occasionally, like the view from Trouble Films, like being within it at the time, we're like, oh wow, we have like a superstar who's like interested in our stuff. And then when you like fully came in, like it was just so easily integrated, where it was just like, oh yeah, Sinn's just part of this now. And it was just like, oh yeah, Sinn Sage might occasionally text me. It's totally cool. But like right after we worked together, like the first few times you texted me or called me or whatever, like my roommate was a super fan of you. So we're all like, oh, Sinn's texting us right now. So it's like this like amazing thing that we've had, that it's like, wow, you're like really fully in and just like part of the group now, where it's like, oh yeah, there's Lita, there's Sinn, there's Toby in
Yay.
Seattle, like
Oh,
us
see, and I
in the
love
Bay.
that. I
Yeah,
love that so much too.
100%.
Yeah. And there's like, we have space for each other to bounce ideas off or be creative. Like, I love it. I love it
Yeah.
so much. And I love that
So
like the stuff we make doesn't have to fit. It doesn't have to check off like all these boxes. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
it can be whatever, because like truly
Yeah.
like there's an amount of people that no matter what you're gonna put out, people are gonna buy. Like there's diehard
Yes.
Sage fans who are gonna buy whatever. Who are gonna be
Oh,
like,
for
if Sin's
sure.
doing it, it's probably gonna be pretty hot. Or vice versa with
Yeah.
like anyone else like Lido or myself, where it's like you build up a fan base over time that there's going to be the interest in it no matter what you do. And I feel like so many of these big studios get into these things where they're like, we have to do exactly like this, or we're going to lose
They
all of our
do.
money. And that's how they
Yes,
operate
they
as a
do.
company. And it's crazy.
And it's getting worse, which is so weird. I feel like we're showing that like it's better to not feel like you have to do that, but no, it's getting worse. Like they're the way they're doing even their castings now isn't
Mhm.
like who is the most authentic, who makes the fieriest sex scenes. It's like who has the most followers on Twitter and Instagram. That's who we want to put in our scenes. And it's like that's a terrible way to cast a movie.
It really
Like
is. But I think that's why studios are dying, because they are not making good decisions. They're like throwing
yeah,
money at crazy shit, being unorganized, and just
yeah.
thinking, well, porn's
Oh,
always worked this way, so it's going to continue working this way.
yes, and they're so fucking wrong.
They're like the same people in the 90s who are like DVDs. It's all it's ever going to be. This internet thing's just a
Yes.
passing fad.
Yeah, right. Passing bad.
Yeah. So you've kind of shot all over. Like you've done LA stuff, you've done content trade, you travel in a van all around the country. Where's your favorite like place or city to shoot?
Um, I don't know. Maybe I do really love Seattle. It's cool up there. Freaking, I don't know. When I think about shooting, okay, well, I love Vegas because it is there's so much work, but it's
Mhm.
all like, oh God, it feels like there's thousands of people who are ready and happy to do some content trade.
Yeah, it seems like there's more than 1,000 even.
Oh
Like every
God,
day
it's
every time I talk to Lita, they're like, yeah, like 20 people are trying to shoot with me right now, and I
yeah,
don't want to answer most of them.
yeah, yeah, and that too. It was just like the trans performer pool, so many, and so that was what was so yes, going there and being like, oh my gosh, I have access to all this variety of people. I was
Yeah.
super into that, and I didn't exactly think about making a trans lesbian movie as a concept like right off the bat. I
Mhm.
just started like hitting up performers on Twitter and being like, let's do a scene together, and everyone was super into it. And then I was just like, wait, I could do another one and another one, and then like, hey, look, I got a movie.
That's like
So
definitely how I feel like most movies happen at Trouble Films, where it's like, oh, I already have 2 movies with this vague theme. Oh, I should just
yeah,
shoot one more. That's a movie.
yep. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah,
So yeah, since trans lesbian lovers, go get it if you haven't
you
yet.
should. It's really, really good. Highly
Yeah,
suggest.
and just such
Um,
a joy, like making those scenes and working with these just like awesome women and love it. So Vegas has been great. It's been, business wise, it's been incredible, really incredible. But my favorite cities are, more like Pacific Northwest
hmm.
and like Austin. I love Austin
Have
and
you been to Vancouver, BC before?
yeah,
Yeah, that's one of my favorite cities on the
I
West
I
Coast.
love it
It's
there
so
too.
beautiful.
It's really cool and yeah, gorgeous. Pacific Northwest, man, I'm all about it up there. It's so
I
nice.
feel you with the Vegas shooting though, especially like during AVN week when you're
Oh
shooting
my
and
gosh.
there's hundreds of other people shooting at the same time.
Oh
Just like that
yeah. Oh
energy is one of my favorite things.
yeah. It does feel good. ABM feels good. I miss it a little bit, but
2023, hopefully, fingers crossed.
yeah, fingers crossed. People get your fucking vaccines. Let's get over this shit.
It's yeah, that's why
Ugh,
I'm going to the award show tomorrow in LA, just because I'm like, okay, this might be the only red carpet in a 3-year span. So I'm like,
yeah.
I just want to go appreciate it for a second. That's about it. Like
Yep,
everything else with it. So I have 2 more questions for you. Thank you so much for talking to me and taking your afternoon.
of
Um,
course.
so you've obviously accomplished a lot in your career so far. Is there anything that you still want to accomplish that you haven't so far, or do you just want to continue doing what you're doing?
It's a good question. It is hard when you like set these various goals for yourself and you achieve them, and then you continue forward and you achieve the next one and stuff like that. And then
It's
you,
really difficult.
yeah, and then we're kind of like, okay, well now what? What's next?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that as of now, I'm still mainly shooting scenes, and where I am the performer, in every scene,
Mhm.
I'm one of the performers. Um, I like to think that there will come a point where, as long, like if I'm putting my name on it, I can shoot to other people. And with my direction and the things that I make of notes to them and stuff like that. And with my husband Drake's like just beautiful videography that I absolutely
Amazing
love.
videography. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just so good. That I can make quality content, lesbian content, that people would be interested in seeing, just that has my brand on it, but not necessarily me as a performer in it. So just coming, like, I don't know, just as the years go by, just sort of racking my brain with different kinds of ideas of things that might sell, but probably lesbian stuff, that's my jam.
Yeah.
And
I'm
all
like,
the,
I feel like a lot of people would be so down with like you directing a lesbian series because I feel like your brand
yeah,
of like lesbian porn is so specific.
I hope so.
Like I honestly can't name any other like lesbian performer who's like specifically known for their strap-on work. Like honestly, I feel like it's like you and that's like kind of about it. Like I can't like
Good.
picture any other like lesbian performer who I'm like, oh yeah, they're like the best with a strap-on. Truly.
Yeah, I know. I've tried thinking those same thoughts, and I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm
I
like,
don't know.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, like I've seen little clips and bits, all over the internet, and I'm like, nope, terrible, can't do it. Like, and yeah, part of me wants to make a how-to movie or like an instructional video, but then at the same time, I'm like, nah, maybe
You
not.
should get masterclass to pay you. And
Yes.
that's what it should legitimately be. I feel like you're like valid on that type of level with strap on that you
Yeah,
should get
fuck
masterclass
yeah.
money. Yeah.
I agree. Let's
Or
let's hit
maybe
them
a
up.
TED talk.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. So I have one more question. This is kind of the out there question, but I ask it to end every single podcast.
Okay.
Let's say you woke up tomorrow and one thing about porn could magically be changed. What would it be?
Oh my gosh. One thing about porn could magically be changed. Hmm. That's really hard. I feel like I should have had gotten that question ahead of time.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought I did. I can tell you mine if you want me to buy some time for you. I totally can.
Okay.
I
Hold on. Let me hold
okay.
on.
No
Get it
worries.
here.
Sorry to put you on the spot there.
No, you're good. You're good. I think I guess for me, it's there's still some well, it kind of feels like it's going away a little bit these days, but there's still some homophobia and transphobia in porn,
Mhm.
and I think a lot of misunderstandings about the testing, and what it means when you refuse to work with someone for a reason like that is more that you think that the integrity of certain types of people is somehow less than the integrity of straight cis performers,
Mhm.
who of which I've known some straight cis performers that get a test and then go off and bang civilians without condoms and then go work with someone else the next day. Their test is still good, but they for some
Mhm.
reason think that if someone's like, a trans performer or a crossover performer or something like that, that they don't have, that they're more dangerous somehow.
Yeah.
For why? Like,
It's so confusing. When I used to work at the
I
Armory, that stuff came up a lot. And it's just like, what are you talking about?
it's so ill-informed. It's such an
Mhm.
outdated way of thinking. You know, if you're going to trust that test from that straight cis performer, then you have no reason not to trust that same test. And I've known performers who will be like, I will only work with someone with a 3-day test or whatever. Cool. Do that then. Like,
Yeah.
but to just completely like count someone out for not being straight, I think it's just, what are you thinking? Like, I don't
Yeah, it's some
understand.
really wild, outdated stuff that still somehow exists in this industry.
Yeah, I'd get rid of that for sure.
I think that's a very good answer. Well, thank you so
Wait,
much for
what's your
talking.
answer? No, tell me yours.
Oh, okay. Yeah, of course. So I think all of this content trade being more important is going and like more powerful, and the studio's failing. I would speed that up like 3 or 4 years so that it just happens now, because I think it's going to solve a lot of the other issues in porn. I think it's going to solve
Yeah,
issues around like diversity. I think it's going to solve issues around
yeah.
transphobia, all that sort of stuff. But I also feel like we are now seeing some of the issues with content trade. Like there's been some fake tests going around Vegas that people are doing,
Oh
like fake
no.
STI tests and stuff where people are, yeah, in shooting. Well, they might have something because they feel like they have to continue shooting content to keep up their website or their OnlyFans or whatever.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
you haven't heard about that stuff?
You know, I sometimes I kind of live in a bubble and I just need I need someone to be like, hey, look, this is going on. And I'm like, oh fuck, obviously, yeah. You know.
Yeah, I feel like
And
it's specifically with Twitter and the adult industry, like you can definitely be in a bubble and just like one group hears about it and another doesn't. But
yeah, for
yeah.
sure. But I mean, it makes sense. But I mean, what you're talking about too, listen, it all comes down to fucking capitalism, man. All right.
It fucking sucks.
And just like, yeah, poverty and labor and the
Yeah.
difficulties with all that, and the fucking the still cost of living that just keeps skyrocketing, the absolute disregard for mental illness, the hustle culture. You know, something that I think more people need to be made aware of is that when people say, you know, oh, sex workers, you know, whatever, you just chose the easiest fucking thing in the world that you could do, and you don't know what hard work is, and you don't know how to work, and yada, 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 right? It's just like a lot of people in this world struggle and suffer from conditions that look invisible to you.
Mhm.
And that callousness with people's existence, I'm fucking sick of it. You know, there's a reason why a lot of us, a lot of people work in sex industry have, you know, like chronic illness and mental illness and um other kinds of shit like that, where it's like, you know, like I have a sleep disorder, so no, I can't be at work ready to go at 8 o'clock in the morning every day. That would be impossible. I would lose my job so fast because I can't do that. You know, I know personally 4 performers who struggle with like lupus and stuff.
Mhm.
And you know, I told one of them that, and she was like, that doesn't surprise me at all. That's why we get into sex work, because then we're able to work around our disabilities, really,
Mhm.
and our dysfunctions, because it's our own schedule and it's what we're able to do when we're able to do it. And we can take the time off when we are sick in ways that traditional work will not allow for. And they'd rather have you be living in a hovel on the sidewalk
Yep.
than doing sex work and actually thriving and taking care of yourself and paying taxes and contributing. Uh, it's just such a mind fuck.
I honestly, the more I've done this podcast, I've actually realized there's a way more of a connection between athletes and sex workers in a way, where
Mhm.
this is a lot of people's way out of poverty or their
Yeah.
bad situation where they lived growing up. Like this is a
Yes.
lot of people's way out. And I think
Yes.
porn gets painted as this thing of like, oh, like these people are like mini celebrities and stuff, but it's also ignoring just like how people kind of generalize athletes and be like, oh, well, they're rich and famous, it doesn't matter. It
Yeah, you're
ignores
right.
where these people come from to get out of their situations. And just like
Yeah.
athletes, I feel like we're the ones who are getting criticized over every little thing online and social media and harassment. And then when we do say, oh, we're having mental health issues, it's just like, oh, you're crazy, you're, you
Yeah,
know,
or it's like, well, obviously, look what you do for a living, you
yeah,
know? And
exactly.
I
It's
will
just like,
say, and it is like what you're talking about with athletes, and that's really insightful. But the difference with us is that add on top of that, 2,000 years of body shaming and sex shaming and misogyny and all that shit.
yeah, it's true.
Throw that into the mix as well, and then now you have people who just like fucking hate us
Yeah,
and will pick up a gun and go and fucking murder us, you
yeah,
know?
this has definitely happened. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think the biggest thing that I've done with this podcast is just there's so many ways and reasons why people get into sex work, and it's just not a really one size fits all thing, which I think so many people assume, because so many people are like, oh, if you're in porn, you have to live in Vegas, you have to live in LA, and you get paid to shoot, and that's your life. And it's just there's so
Right.
many
They
different
think we're
ways and
stupid. They
different,
think we couldn't
yeah.
do anything else. They think we're lazy because we don't want to work hard, because what work hard looks like to them is not what work hard looks like to us. And
Mhm.
also, it's not like we're just fucking all the time. That's like such a tiny little portion of the job. Like
Yeah.
tiny little portion of the job. Like it's so much fucking work. It's crazy work, but yeah.
Yeah, but thank you so much for like talking about all this with me, Sin. Like it was so insightful just to hear about your experiences getting into porn, because obviously I knew of your work from like the mid 2000s stuff, but just hearing how you got into it and how you kind of viewed yourself during all of that and the frustration before finally winning AVN, like truly that's like a heartwarming thing. And I feel like that those are kind of stories I love uncovering on this podcast,
well,
because it's just,
it's my pleasure, my total pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for asking me to. And
yeah.
be happy to do it anytime.
Do you want to give people the plugs to all your social media and stuff before we go?
Yeah, definitely. So, first place where I'd really love everyone to start is sin-sage.com. That's my homepage. It's where you can find out information about my custom videos, and you can find out my newest movies that I've released through Trouble Films. Like those are all sold on my website, sin-sage.com. That's Sin with 2 N's. And then my OnlyFans, of course. For now, I've got my OnlyFans, trying to find the effort and energy and time to start up with a different fan site. But for now, please go there and sign up. It's onlyfans.com/Sinn Sage. And I am on that thing all the time. And I post like a stupid amount of content for a super low price. So hope you will check that out. And then please find me on Twitter at Sinn Sage. On Instagram, I'm at Real Sinn Sage. On Reddit, I have a subreddit. It's r/Sinn Sage.
Wow, I didn't know
And
you had a
I'm
subreddit. That's impressive.
yes, and I am u/Real Sinn Sage. And then please check out my clip stores, sinsage.manyvids.com and sinsagedreams.com. That's my clips for sale store. And I feel like those are all of the main things. Did I leave anything out?
I think that's everything. Please check out all of Sin's work. They're such an amazing performer, and yeah, just all the stuff you've been producing the last few years, truly like magical, perfect lesbian content. So if anyone wants some amazing lesbian porn, highly, highly suggest. Thank you so much, Sin.
Thank you.